Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good
Welcome
evening.
to Adesoji Speaks. And today I am going to be joined by three eminent Nigerians. I've got Jude, Emmanuel Ukato, and Jesse Adeniji, and also will be joined by Fubara Eneli, who is due to join us shortly. But before we start, Adesoji Speaks, as you know, is a platform for bringing discussion about Africa. And where better to start this week than the giant of Africa itself? At least that's what it wishes to be known as. By population, it's the largest country on the continent. But to a larger extent, people would tend to agree that it has not lived up to expectation. But before I begin, I need to extend happy anniversary greetings to Ghana, who marked 67 years of independence today, and led by the great Kwame Nkrumah, who said Ghana's independence is not complete without the complete liberation of Africa. And liberation doesn't begin with doesn't just stop with having a flag. It also goes to the minds of the people. And part of that liberation is having a broad concept of what it is to be an African, a Nigerian, and a global citizen. But in this case now, where Nigeria has been going through some economic turmoils for the last couple of weeks, made a lot of headlines. So I thought it best to bring it onto the platform and discuss or add our voice to the voices on all things Nigeria. And so with me tonight, as I said earlier, is Jude, Ukato, Jesse, Adeniji. And I'll allow them to introduce themselves before we get into the discussion. Jude, if you do the honors.
Hi, thank you. Adesoji Speaks. My name is Jude, Emmanuel Ukato. On social media, I'm known as Jude Speaks the God. I've been known by different names. As it is with life, you got to update, upgrade, and all of that. So I've been moving with the times. I live in London. I'm a social worker by day. I'm a poet, author of children's books, father with children. I try to keep out of trouble, but trouble keep pulling me closer. And trouble in this sense is Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Brother Jesse.
So Jude is a tough act to follow. So
You flatter me.
I'm much more gentler. So my name is Jesse Adeniji, and I'm a researcher at the moment. I work with a research company. So we do global research across the world. And the difference between us and mainstream research companies is because we look at things from the prism of different ethnic, groups. So that all our research is not just Eurocentric. And I also run GSMA Consulting because I've been in marketing communications for the last 22 to 25 years. So that's it. I run GSMA Consulting in London as well. So I currently live in Kent. We moved away from London, from the maddening crowd, and I'm enjoying the quiet, here. So, yeah, I'm on Facebook. I do my thing right about Nigeria, as just like you and the rest of our 200 million people who came from that, region. So that's it.
Okay. And driving, hopefully not frenetically, is Sister Aya Fubara Eneli. Thank you for joining us while you're commuting. And do you mind adding your voice to the conversation?
Good afternoon.
To the next 4 minutes here. But
Mm-hmm.
definitely, this is an incredible opportunity to speak about our country, a land that I love so much, and there is so much suffering. My name is Fubara Eneli. I am what Nigerians will call Japa. I was raised in Nigeria, went to Ikulu Primary School, FGC Enugu, and then returned to the United States for my university. I am currently an attorney, a writer, a life coach, a mom, a wife, but very invested in Nigeria. We started a library 2 years ago in Opobo town. Some of you
Okay.
may have heard of King Jaja of Opobo.
Yes,
And
yes.
Mm-hmm.
we're also looking to hopefully partner with a school and really get into the nitty gritty of helping to educate about 200 young people in Opobo on an annual basis. So still very much involved in my country, and funnily enough, maybe not funny, but I think it's worth noting. 7 children at one point. All of us lived here in the U.S. And over the last decade plus, some of my siblings have moved back to Nigeria. My parents moved back to Nigeria because we want to be part of the solution. Although Nigeria is a very tough place to navigate. But
Mm.
ultimately, for many of us, it is still where we call home, even though we may have dual citizenship or anything else. And so, Adesoji, thank you very much for this opportunity to have this conversation.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. The more, the better. And so, yes, the first question to you guys would be in no specific order. You can decide which way to go. What is Nigeria to you guys?
I'll go. Okay. Nigeria. Huh. Nigeria is home, first and foremost, though. That's where I was born. Lived my first 25 years in Nigeria. Like I said earlier, when I was introducing myself, I said I try to keep myself away from trouble being Nigeria, and it keeps pulling me in. People ask me, yeah, Lord, why do you even care? Why do you talk about the country so much? And the reason I do is because I so much believe in that country and its people. I always tell people that Nigeria is the best country on earth to exist. And I said, in the present circumstances, the only country that could ever rival Nigeria would have been America, the way we're set up, the way our different states is, our weather and people, the creativity and the hustle and bustle. I thought America would be the only country to rival us, although we got a long way to go. But I know why I said this is because you people will see seed on the floor and say that seed is dead, nothing good will come out of it. But I see Nigeria as that many seeds, and they say, look, it's dead now, but if you put a bit of water, put it in a very good environment, nurture it proper, put proper caretakers to look over it, Nigeria could blossom into the best and most beautiful flower on earth. That's why I'm passionate about it. But recently, to be honest, I've given hope and thought I don't think I would ever see a better Nigeria in my time, and maybe my grandchildren won't actually even get to witness that. And the reason for that is just because of the trajectory of things. It seems like we're moving 4 steps forward and we take 40 backwards with the things that we see. Again, whether we like it or not, politics and politicians control the affairs of Nigerians. And when we see what is happening in the political terrain, it's not easy to continue to believe that it will happen. So your hope is lifted high at this moment, and before you know it comes crashing with the utterances of people in Nigeria. So Nigeria to me is just, I don't know, it's mixed bed right now, man. It's delicate. It's for me, it's delicate. It's home. It's everything. I cry most nights that I want to be back in that place. No matter how difficult it is, like my sister just said, they want to be part of the solution. But I also have to balance the other side of things, like the risks to my life. It's not because I know Nigerians mostly respect dead heroes. No one cares about the ones who are alive. So do I want to sacrifice myself? Still a big question. So let me clear the stage for others.
And Brother Jesse.
Well, I wish I'm very, very confident, like Jude, speak that good. But honestly, I think that question is really, really difficult. I
Hmm.
don't know what Nigeria is,
Hmm.
and I'll be 50 this year. I don't know what Nigeria is. Um, what I know from years of study is that it's a contraption the British used to take resources and to take it out of Africa, just like the rest of the African, states.
Hmm.
And since we said we got independence, I've never really seen any framework or anything that says this is these people. But
Hmm.
from my house where I grew up, I knew that I'm Yoruba,
Hmm.
and I've read the works of Chief Awolowo, who said that first and foremost, you must be something
Hmm.
before you are a Nigerian. And I tend to agree with him because historically we know that not all the tribes and nations that are here today made it.
Hmm.
Some have been erased. So if you are Yoruba, if you are Hausa, if you are Igbo, if you are anything on this earth, that means your race is among the lucky ones that made it to where we are. So
Hmm.
there are some values and there are some identities that are inherent in that, in that race.
Okay.
So bringing everything together in what is called Nigeria is a different ballgame because if judging by 60 years of independence, I really don't know what Nigeria is, to be honest. You can bring anybody, you can bring people together in the
Hmm.
middle of nowhere
Hmm.
and give them a different identity, give them a landmass, and they will go to the Olympics. They will create a culture that they can rally around. They will make use of technology, and they can do everything that Nigeria is doing. But we know what makes up a country is far, far, far deeper than the projected identity that they've got. So really, I know what Nigeria is, but I know who Nigeria is, but
Hmm.
I don't know what Nigeria is. If you get what
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll let my sister, do her own talking.
Can you repeat the question, please?
What is Nigeria to you?
You're coming out the gate swinging hard. Um, um, wow. So I like to say I am from that place that is currently called Nigeria, right? Because we weren't always called that.
Mhm.
And we are still trying to figure out our identity. And Jesse, when you said 60 years of independence, I'm like, where are you getting that from? Because I don't recall that we've ever been independent. We're still I
Wow.
went to school there. All of our nursery rhymes, not all, but the nursery rhymes in the schools, we're from Europe. We're from England specifically. The Bible, our national anthem for years,
Yeah.
the very name itself. As an attorney, every time I see Nigerians with that damn wig on their head, it's just like it just eats me up on the inside.
Oh.
Our
Hmm.
laws are based on what they put together. WIEC, everything is still based on their educational system. So, brother, we have 0 days of independence in my book.
Hmm.
So getting back to the question, what does Nigeria mean to me? It's a place of my ancestors. It's a place of fantastic memories and deep traditions. A resilient people, but it's also a place where people are increasingly, I think, losing hope. It's a place where we're pretty much pawns for imperialists. It's a powder keg.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I should.
You didn't expect that, eh?
No,
Yeah.
well, powder keg is, which means the next question, which brings us to economics, would probably, hopefully, not ignite the country as we speak. General Yakubu Gowon in 1973, at the height of the oil boom, said, and I quote, "Money is not the problem of Nigeria, but how to spend it."
Hey, wow,
Hey,
that's hitting.
So,
what
in light
year
of
was that again?
1973,
What was it? What was I in response to?
I think I know a little bit about that.
Okay.
go on.
He did say that. I think he was, you know, journalist. I say it was is that American or a UK journalist that he was talking to. But basically, the reason why I said I don't know what Nigeria is, it's my sister, Fubara Eneli, yeah, she did, touch on that a little bit. We said we got independence in 1960,
Mm-hmm.
and we had quite a few people who were trying to build the country. They called them the founding fathers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the war happened. And who are the guys in the military? Gowon was out when we fought the Civil War. It was 27 or so. Most of the military guys, I think Ojukwu was the oldest among them, right?
Yeah,
And he was in his
correct.
30s.
Mm-hmm.
Now, imagine when you were in your 30s, what were you thinking about? What was your responsibility and what was your foresight about the country and what you're going to do? So much of what these guys did, the responsibilities they had, the kind of capacity they were supposed to muster to build a country, it was not there. Don't let's fool ourselves. So that's why I always, go back to what is the structure. So we had a structure that was working. The founding fathers, so to say, they were really honest. They all said we're not one people. Do you get me? Not one people. And that was the reason why they chose a particular type of model to govern Nigeria. And it was much more like, okay, guys, it's going to be a truly fiscal federal union. And that is, for that short period that we had the First Republic, it was working. Okay, I can give a quick example. We had UI, and in the West, it was seen as a federal institution. So Awolowo, who led the Western region, said, okay, we're going to build something better. And they went for OAU, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Eastern
University of
government,
Ife.
the Eastern government did not sit back. They built UNN. And the Northern government said, oh, okay, we need to compete. Okay, let's have ABU. That sort of thing.
Good. Yeah.
And then after the war, we just saw someone who came up and said,
For those listening, ABU, Ahmadu Bello University, UNN
sorry.
University.
Zaria.
Yeah. So it was working, but what have we got now with this unitary, system that Aguiyi Rossi imposed on the system that was sustained by the Northern, military hegemony? It is about exploiting people, the underclass in Nigeria, for the benefit of a few, less than 1% of people from different ethnic groups. Okay. So, for instance, I have Ijaw friends and Niger Delta, people who came from the Niger Delta. And I always say to them, you know what? If you can understand what is going on, you'll be at war with everyone you see because we're taking advantage of you. Do you understand? And it's the same feeling that
we tried now and they killed Ken Saro-Wiwa.
I know, but I'm just looking at the system that we had, that it was an honest system, and on the system we're running now. And we know that economic success depends on political structure. It is not any way around. So if you go to the Nordic countries, Norway, for instance, if you look through their political history, you'll find out that they had capitalism at the beginning, and they find out this social social inequality was what's going to ensue. So the next thing was the socialist parties actually pick up arms and went to war. They won and said, look, this is how we're going to manage the resources of this country. We're going to save up some. We're going to use some for now because we see. So I talk about organizing idea. So they see all resources within Norway as something that does not belong to them alone. Do you see how organizing idea begins to form what your political idea is? So we're going to use what we need to use, and we're going to keep 30% for people who are coming behind us. So when we had NNPC, for instance, they had their Statoil, and now I think the investment they've got, if you go to London, you go to Oxford Circus and Regent Street, at one point they owed 60% of all the property in that area. That is the Norway Sovereign Fund. Now, what do we get with Nigeria? We steal all this oil from the people who own the oil money, and then some people gather at Abuja and they say, "Oh, let's share the money." I need to leave now, but I'll give you an example. When I served up north in Gombe State, I traveled all the way to Gombe. It took me like 16 hours. And when I got to Gombe, they said, you have to travel 27 more miles inland to get to where you're going to do your service. Do you know the largest billboard that I saw when we got there is Federal Government Allocation Sharing Committee. Do you get what I'm saying?
That's telling.
That's all that gets done in Nigeria. So
it's about sharing.
If we don't have a structure that gives the people who own their own land the right to exploit what they've got and share it with the rest, I don't see how we're going to build any nation or any cohesive union for a startup. Please let me leave the floor to my other friend.
Brother Jude.
Fantastic. See, you touched on so many things and talk about the organized ideas. It's one thing that's always been lacking in the whole Nigeria since the days of Awolowo and the others. Because I've read a few books of Awolowo. I was opportunity to see him one time when he came to my area. I was very young then. Anyway, these were people we read about. We quotations things that they said became quotations that people would run with. So there was some sort of ideology around that. And as Jesse rightly said, when you have that, that's what then drive. It's an idea, a tiny idea like that from a meeting can be that
spark,
or what the whole nation need, the spark that they need to drive behind. Like I rightly mentioned Ken Sarawiwa. It's not like we've not had people who with this sort of ideas and spark. But what the political elder does is they kill them quick because they know the power behind all of that. Once it spreads like a wildfire, and people will be gingered in our Nigeria way, so to speak, to act upon that. That's why I said society needs its engineers, its orators, its architects, its carpenter, but mostly needs the orators because those are the ones who kind of, how do you call it, marinate those words and use them, because it's all about storytelling. It's not enough to just have those ideas. You have those ideas, you marinate those ideas, you put them out there. Wole Soyinka speaks very well, but sometimes when he comes out and he opens his mouth, people curse him because they don't understand what he's saying. It doesn't get down to the person at the bottom. So one who is able to speak at the Abuja people will hear, and that person at my local market in Benin will understand and run with it and say, I know what that man they talk, and they carry my stick with they go. Those are the kind of firebrand, but we don't have that, and that is not what pushes our politics forward. Our politics is all about come share. If I open my mouth to be talking about stories here about come share, you'll be like, huh? It's all about come share. It is so bad. It's so endemic. That's why I say I gave up hope that it's not going to work. I met a young woman recently because I'm training her, and she was telling me about her dad, who was part of, I think the dad was into accounting. You'll be surprised. Things that existed in Nigeria those days that we do here in England. So he managed accounts for organizations, like for tax return and stuff and auditing. And he used to manage Nigeria Labour Congress account. What this lady found out, what the dad told her was, during when Oshomole was their chairman. Said the dad said, Nigeria not go ever better. Let me speak it that way. I said, why, Dad? Said, these people you see, they all just going to Abuja to collect their share, or Lagos at the time. Look at the account. Look at what they're declaring. If Nigerians know, they will hang Oshomole. They were all just common thieves. They'll come out and make noise and go there and share the resources. So it was just sharing committee all around. And you can't build a nation based on that. A few people will rise up and enjoy from that and benefit from that. But the majority, well, like you rightly said earlier when we was having our own little chat, the majority were never part of the equation. It was always about the few elites.
And I
No-
think that that's a great point to make
Mm,
because, again, when we go back to the creation of Nigeria, the amalgamation of these areas, and how the Berlin Conference and Arab and European traders, none of this colonial system that we have in place was ever created for the benefit of the people, of the masses, of the indigenous people. And when we got our so-called independence, which Frantz Fanon will argue that if you didn't have to fight for your freedom, you don't have any freedom.
I was going to come to that. I like that a lot.
So
Ooh.
if someone can just write paper and whatever, and you're like, oh, now I'm free, I'm independent. You kept every single structure. We still have the government reserved areas. We still have the boys' quarters. We still have how they, yes, we've divided more from 3, regions to 12 states to 19 to, I don't know, what did we go to
27
after
to
that?
36.
37, 36. Yeah, we've done all of those things so that there are more people who can share. But essentially, when you look at our ports, when you look at our trading routes, they are still based on the colonial trading routes.
Everything.
It was set up to prosper Europe and the West. Now, they understand that they need some middle managers, which is why they educated a few of us. And so the 1% that Jesse alluded to are still the 1% that are running things, keeping a certain amount, and then making sure that things continue to flow to the imperialists. We have not in any dramatic way changed that. And then this whole focus, if you look at the economic crisis in Nigeria now of how we are devaluing the naira and how we're hoping for foreign investments, and it's like, if you just look at what you have and how you're spending what you have, we may not be so dependent on these so-called foreign investments. And I'm just going to throw this out here because, Adesoji, I don't know if you're going to ask a question related to this. I was speaking to a client who is a senior, she's pretty high up in her company in Nigeria, where she's been for over 20 years. And she told me that she is the only senior Nigerian person left there. What they've done is, and I'm not sure if they made these changes because Tinubu came up with this this expatriate employment levy.
Yes.
But what she said has happened in her company is they have fired pretty much all the Nigerians, and they now have the jobs the Nigerians were doing being done by people in the US. But as a Nigerian where she is, she's been cut off from most of the meaningful work. She's basically just twiddling her thumbs. And she was actually meeting me as a coach to figure out what her next move should be, because she is a little older, she's more mature, but she's like, I see the writing on the wall. And I'm like almost the last one standing. So when you look at what we've set up in Nigeria, you have these multinational companies, many of them either hiring quote unquote expatriates who come and make way more money than our own Nigerian people make there. All of this money is being siphoned and taken back to their countries. Of course, the few elitist Africans, we also want to go on vacation in Spain and Dubai and the UK and all of that. We're not also spending our money where we are. So when you look at let me just wrap up by saying that, again, starting with our genesis as a quote unquote country, we never gained independence. I don't think we ever really sat down and defined who we wanted to be for ourselves. when Nkrumah came with the concept of a united Africa, people like Nnamdi Azikiwe opposed it. Again, small-minded thinking, where it's like, no, I can be prime minister of my country, versus if we come together as a continent, I may not have such a lofty position. But these decisions made by our, now many of them ancestors, 60 plus years ago, are still haunting us today. And let me also say one last thing. Jesse talked about, I think it was Jesse who talked about our founding fathers. Y'all should have had mothers included. But
Yeah.
that's
True, 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 true,
Well,
true.
you're right. Actually, if you trace the trajectory of history regarding the women, I think they did quite a lot more work
Yeah, they did.
than some of the men did
Mm.
ever.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you look at the Aba riots of
yeah.
1917 or so,
Mm.
or 1930
1929.
something, 1929, yeah. It was the women. They just said enough is enough.
Yeah.
Look, we don't care what you do. We don't fear your guns. We don't fear your police. We're gonna just do what we want to do. The same thing with what happened with the market uprising in
Yeah.
Yoruba land in Lagos as well.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah.
So yeah, so we never. You can rest assured that we know what you guys did. So without you, there's not going to be Nigeria.
Right.
But I've always said, if when at every point that we discuss Nigeria, I've always gone back to structure, because I do believe that the First Republic was the window of opportunity that we missed, and it still remains a snapshot for how we should have proceeded, you know. For instance, take Western Nigeria. Do you know that in Western Nigeria, at the regional levels, they were speaking Yoruba language in parliament? And when they will go out to engage with the people, it has to do with speaking Yoruba. And the system of governance that a true fiscal federal, list system give you actually allows the ordinary people
To engage.
to take part in the process of governance.
It does.
Now, what has happened with this structure that Agui and Rossi imposed? Because, look, we must be honest with ourselves. One thing that I see lacking in any Nigerian discussion is honesty. The founding fathers knew we're not one people, and we must develop at the pace that we can sustain individually as a people. Now, what is happening to that lady you talk about is happening to my sister, right? She works in one of the oil companies, and for like the last 15 years, she's been performing a role at the management level that she's not being paid for.
Oh, wow.
No, she's being paid, but not paid at the rate that they will bring the least qualified expatriate into the business. And because it's a subsidiary of the NNPC, as they said, they're now saying they're collapsing the organizations, what Tinubu is currently doing. Right now, she doesn't know where she stands, and she's at the crossroads. So many people are like that. What has happened in that case is not divorced from the structure of governance and the structure of politics that I'm talking about. When you aggregate things at the top, what happens is you kind of like decimate the lower ranks, and the kind of high-level decisions you take will affect people, but it will never affect the people at the top. So that is what is going on there. So if we are going to go forward in Nigeria, like they say in Yoruba land, when they say if an adult falls on the ground, it looks forward. No, sorry. If a kid, trips and falls, it's going to look forward. I need to get to where I'm going. I'm in a rush. I need to get to where I'm going. But if an adult trips and falls, it's going to look back.
Yeah.
It's going to look
what tripped me over?
What happened? What tripped me?
Yeah.
When I'm going next, when I proceed, I need to watch out for, things like that, obstructions. That's exactly what we need, where we are in Nigeria. And that's exactly what we need to do. there's something about, okay, let's take America. is in America, for instance. They had a clear idea of what they were doing. So all the states were the constituent units. So they have their powers. And the powers they had allowed, that's why you have, let's just take law enforcement, for instance, and security. The governor says, I'm the chief security officer of my state.
Mm.
It's got the resources to be the chief security officer because it's got the state police. And, even the local councils, we'll use local council. What do they use is it counties that you use in the US?
Yeah, we have counties. Yeah.
You have counties. The counties, they have their police units. Do you get me? So now, if you are taking decisions in your own state, you are naturally thinking about that state to say, this is where I get my political power from. I need to build the economic system that works, to further, what is going on. So we can see what is going on in Texas right now versus what is going on in the national center. It's the same thing in the UK, right? So the different boroughs and different counties, they've got their own powers. Even within, let's say, Great Britain, for instance, we know that if you go to Holyrood, I think Holyrood is in Wales. They have their own
Holyrood is
assembly.
Scotland. Holyrood is Scotland.
In Scotland. It's in Scotland. Which one is the one for Wales?
Wales is what's it called?
Crime
rules.
Crime rules something. Yeah, it's a difficult language. Yeah.
Blood crime rule.
So
don't even start.
You can see that local people are taking local decisions. So if you look at Scotland, for instance, that ability to look out for themselves has ensured that one of their primary resources is the lakes and the scenic areas. What have they done with that? About 40% of all the best whiskies and brandies that is bought around the world comes from Scotland. And it's all linked to their natural environment. So they tell you that the water that they use for this whiskey comes from a particular, loch.
Yeah.
And you can get it anywhere else. Now, Scotland has the North Sea. What do they do by that? They're fishing salmon. So if you're eating salmon in the UK, you're eating Scottish salmon. Whether it's farmed or, wild. Then, thirdly, they used to take oil from the North Sea, right? Now, you don't go to North Sea and say, as Britain, and say, I'm going to populate the exploitation of resource in the North Sea with English people and Welsh people. You know automatically that 60% of all the workforce in that area must be Scottish. Because it's their natural resource. That is where they came from. And right now, I think Northern Sea exploration tapered down in the last 10 years. But what has Scotland been doing with the accumulated years of experience that they've got there?
They have been
exporting
their workforce.
Talent. Yeah. So if you're talking about most difficult places in the world to tap, crude oil, who do you go for? You go for Scottish engineers. Now, flip, that idea and go to Nigeria. Dangote comes to Kogi State.
Oh, God.
He gets given free land. He gets given everything for free. And the cement that is producing in that area pollutes the environment. There's no job for the people who are local. Okay, let's see what he did with the new refinery, right? They have license to employ 40,000 people, skilled workers, whatever you want. I believe every job is skilled anyway. They employed over 25,000 from outside of the country.
Oh, wow.
The juicy roles, went to Indians, Pakistanis, English people and all of that. Who get the kind of jobs they were giving to Nigerians?
Gatemen.
Cleaners and all of that. I don't know any country, apart from that, is a security risk. I believe in Yoruba land, for instance. Giving a single person authority over a port, for me, is criminal. I don't know where that is done. It's like saying that, you took certain aspects of the United States and you gave it to an individual. Now, he got all of those factors of production, for free. What does he give back to Nigerian? Instead,
He
the
gets
Nigerian
sing.
state,
We sing about
gave $4.5 billion into that refinery, making you and I that are seated here, we are all shareholders in Dangote refinery because the collective money is being paid into that area. What is he doing with that money? He's shipping all the products outside of the Nigeria, and Nigerians are paying 700, naira for a liter of fuel. So I agree with Aya that we're not independent, and what we are doing is because we did not free up the energies of the local people to do. Okay, before I leave, I'm really sorry for taking your time. I have my in-law is from the Niger Delta, right? He married my sister, and every time I tell him, what Nigeria is
part of the Niger Delta.
It's Isoko.
Okay, we're kind of cousins.
Yeah, I work with one of the best guys that I work with. I work in advertising agencies in Nigeria. I work in Leo Bonnet, Lagos, and I work in JWT Lagos, J. Walter Thompson, Lagos. One of the best guys that I work with is Clement Omemu. He's from Ijo. Mm-hmm. And I always tell him, I said, I look in the census records, and Ijo people are not up to 3 million people. They are not up to 3 million people. So I said to him, you know what? Let's look at it this way.
We actually believe we're more than that. We just don't. We don't.
Okay, let's just say 5 million people.
Report our numbers. But go ahead.
Let's say 5 million people. Now, imagine what Nigeria is making from, if you're controlling, but in the First Republic, that's a snapshot for us. The Constitution says that you keep 60% of the resources that you've got. You send 40% to the center. If willy-nilly, Ijo, that's Bayelsa, is controlling 60% of the oil wealth in that area, it should be the Riviera of Africa. I'm talking oil wealth. I'm talking about sea wealth, because that is where you should see shipping, industry, growing and all of that. So if you've got that, I tell my people who are against us restructuring or even breaking apart as a nation, all you need is a visa to get into that place, because Bayelsa cannot produce its own doctors.
No.
It takes 7 years to produce doctors. So whichever region is producing the best doctors is what they're going to go for.
Yes.
In fact, if you go to Bayelsa, just like if you go to Qatar, you cannot do my GAT as security. Rich people want people who are well-dressed, who use technology to protect them. So if you've got that skill, they're going to pay for it. So eventually, this fear of redistribution that we've got, that, if these people have access to their own resources, they're going to be richer than us, it's a farce. Of course, you want them to be rich.
Of
They
course.
are black people, let them be rich. We're all being subjected to years and years and years and years of exploitation. I want to see my black brother very, very rich. That's what I'm for. But if he's rich, I can get a visa, go to their country, offer fantastic service. And they can buy from me.
Of course.
And I'm going to be part of exploiting that resource that they've got. So for me, until we go back to, they say they want to manufacture patriotism that is based on one Nigeria. No, I don't believe in Nigeria. In fact, when we see ourselves, we look at our names and we start to figure out, where is it from?
Where it's from? It's fact. Fact.
That's who we are as Africans.
Yes.
I need to respect your culture. You need to respect my culture. But in what the basis of all of that is that you must control your natural environment. If you control your natural environment to the 60% of what you've got in there, you're going to have patriotism naturally.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I've taken a lot of time.
Okay, no.
That's fine.
It leads us to this question, actually. It leads us to this question. And I'll first of all pose it to Jude, which is, if you take this quote, right? If you're emotionally attached to your tribe, religion, or political leaning, to the point that truth and justice becomes secondary consideration, your education and exposure is useless. That's a quote attributed to Dr. Chuba Okadibo. So the question is, to Jude first, to Aya second, then we'll go back to Jesse, is, can we pray ourselves out of the economic trouble we are in?
According to Adesoji and a few others, they can. But I'll go to their colloquial. So since I was young and now I am old, I have never seen. Correct. I don't know what the song is, but that one. Since I was very young, man, they've been praying. You know, the Bible says, suffer not the children to come unto. Say this, for these are their minds are the kingdom of God. One time, my son happened to see Pastor Chris doing miracles and say, take it. And adults were falling head to scatter everywhere. My boy was 7 that time. I never forget that encounter. And he said, Papa, what are they taking? I'm like, you can't, yeah. Yeah, so just like that. And I said, you can't see what they're taking. He said, no. And I said, seriously, let's look again. He's giving us something. He said, no. I said, thank you very much. That's why Christ said they should allow you come into the temple. They should not push you guys out because your mind is pure. You're curious. You have that curiosity. You ask questions. But the adults in the room, their mind is being cajoled. It's being cushioned to believe in something they don't see. They're not actually, because we all tell stories. They not actually believe phantom stories. No, we cannot pray ourselves out of the economic crisis. You can work hard and have structures like Jesse's been saying all evening. We cannot pray. There's no society will pray themselves out of this. It needs dedication, it needs hard work, it needs expertise, it needs the exchange of resources between different terrains. Like Jesse said, you cannot absolutely pray. If it was possible, I don't think Europeans will hold that. They'll hold the monopoly on prayer. So we cannot. And actually, if you've been through the 4 walls, I never respect anyone who's sorry to offend people. Anyone who's been through the 4 walls of schools and then become prisoner to their religion and tribal instinct and sentiments and all of that, emotionally attached to it. I don't respect them. It's why the former vice president, they said he was an astute lawyer, whatever his name was. And the next thing it will end with prayer. I'm like, where are you going with this? How do you come to an economic initiative conference and you're starting with prayer? It doesn't work for me. So no, truly and truly, you cannot pray yourself out of this current economic crisis. We need people with the brains and wherewithal to lead us out of it. And all to do that is to go back to restructuring. And I like what Aya said before, when she quoted France and all. I always said, where is our Kwame Nkrumah? We don't have that. Those who fought from the trenches. Okotie-Eboh, Enahoro, Press, all of them who said they wanted independence, they were in cahoots with the colonizers as well.
Mm.
They were drinking wine. They go and check Okotie-Eboh pictures. He was lounging. They were dragging his robe around with him. He was using rose dress like the colonizers. So those men were drinking whiskey, enjoying smoking cigars with them. They really did not fight from the trenches for anything. So what you don't fight for, you don't really value. So that's why I really value that quote. So we cannot pray ourselves out of it. Trust me, we cannot. It doesn't work. Let me just be blunt. It doesn't work.
Sister Aya,
Well,
you can
I
start with a
believe
prayer.
it's time to pray. Yes. Oh my goodness, his name is escaping. It was Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu. At least the quote is attributed to him.
Yeah.
He said they came with the Bible in their hands and told us to close our eyes. Let us pray. We closed our eyes and we prayed. When we opened our eyes, we had the Bible. They had our land. So even if I were to go by the Bible, since we're not talking about the Quran right now, let's just talk about the Bible. The Bible says faith without works is dead.
Fuck.
So if I sit down right now and pray for a great harvest in my garden, but I never actually go there, go to the ground, till the ground, plant anything, try to nurture anything growing, I can pray until I'm bleeding blood, and I'm not going to see anything. And so, unfortunately, in fact, I was joking about this when I was back home in 2022, I think, because I was home with my children, and I said, I want you guys to look at the billboards, and I want you to give me a sense of what the nation is about just by looking at the billboards. I was talking to my kids. My children were with me. And they're like, oh, okay, well, technology, phones, and they were all white models. This was before they made the change that you have to use black models in your advertising in Nigeria. And then it was, you need to open a church.
Oh, boy.
Or you need to sell alcohol. So those were the three things: white models with phones, lots of alcohol commercials, and then
Joints.
it was all these churches and everything. And so we started talking, and they were like, "Mom, you could come here as a life coach, just put,
Yeah.
Monet, bring some Bible verses here and there, have a big revival, and in one night you can make more than you make working your butt off for a whole month." And
Facts.
so definitely religion is one of the biggest industries in Nigeria now. In fact, when I was driving in Nigeria, I kept asking the driver, I'm like, "What's that building there?" Because there were these monstrous, I'm talking like a whole city block.
Mm.
And it was like, "Oh yeah, it used to be a textile place, whatever, but now
It's a church.
Now it's a church." Now, the biggest buildings I saw in Lagos and Port Harcourt were churches.
Churches, yeah.
And every night, you have revival, 6 a.m., noon prayer, evening prayer, all day, all night vigil, it's the industry. So short answer to your question, no, we're not going to pray ourselves out of this mess. But it comes back to everything that Jude and Jesse have talked about. For me, comes back to one of you said something about controlling our natural resources. And my question is, how do we control our natural resources when we don't control our minds? See, the reason why we can never create a structure that benefits us is because someone else is living rent-free and is directing our thoughts. So Nigerians are not even thinking about, and Africans as a whole, about who we are and what we need to do for ourselves. I see quote unquote elites talking about, why can't we be like Dubai? Why can't we be like Paris? Do you understand that these places, capitalism, they basically lived off of people like you? So who are you going to live off of to create that? Those things aren't even sustainable long term, but that's what we're going for. And I just want to mention one last thing. 2023, 700% increase in visas to Nigerian students. We're leaving. Right now, the Nigerian Medical Association is estimating that 50 doctors leave Nigeria on a weekly basis. So who's going to be this brain? Where are we getting the brains to sit down and think through our issues and possibly fight the oligarchy that exists right now? I don't know.
Amen.
Let me chip in. Thank you for taking my job from me. Because you went to Nigeria and you did a dipstick research. That's what we call dipstick research. Just feeling, the waters and dipping your toes into the waters and seeing what comes up. And your kids were 100% on point. And it all goes back to what I've been saying. Once you disconnect a man from his land, then he loses all senses of identity. Because your land is where all your structure, all your belief systems, all your cosmology, the way you see the world, everything comes from that. And I think the old books that Chinua Achebe wrote about things fall apart, that's what he's describing basically. So the center, it took one of these poets, from the UK, the center cannot hold, and therefore things fall apart. So what he was saying is that somebody else come, and my brother that I sit with every day cannot listen to me anymore. The things that we used to do, we cannot do it again.
Yes.
So we have to do it back. So that's exactly what I'm saying. You see, there is freedom in being connected to your land and exercising some form of authority on your land. I don't agree with the quote that you had initially from that guy, Chuba Okadigo. I don't agree with it at all. At all. We're making a mistake. I used to think that way, and I've traveled around the world. In Iceland today, if you want to go to Iceland, they'll take people who look like them. If I know a lot of black people who married and all of that, and they still are not made to feel at home in Iceland. I'm telling you how homogenic
They want to keep it, yeah.
Yes.
Iceland is. There is something about who you are and the ethnic tribe that you come from. If you're Welsh, Welsh are proud of their ancestry. They can die on it for it. If you're Scot, I went to Portugal about 2 weeks ago. I went to the Algarve. And at the promontory, near the sea, this guy just looked at me. How you doing? I said, you Irish? He said, by the grace of God, I am.
Yes.
Do you understand? He told me all his life story just because I identified
With
his ethnicity and where he came from. So there's a whole lot of story that is at least 100,000 years old, lined up to that identity. So for me, that's what I always said. If your tribe or your race survived up to now, it survived for a reason. And that is what brings diversity. But what we don't understand as Africans is this. You have to be comfortable in your own skin, in your own land, and have enough in your hand to bring to the table. If you're sitting at the table with me and you've got nothing in your hand, that makes you apprehensive. That makes you touchy because you don't have something to bargain with. We're all bargaining. Don't ever forget that all the wars that have been fought in the world from beginning to the end, it's been about resources, the control of resources.
Yeah.
We fought among people that you know and people that Umuleri and the Aguleri, they've been fighting for the last 100 years. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you need to know who you are, but realize that when I come to the table with people that are not from my own ethnic, race or tribe, I need to give them some gap, as in respect their culture. That is where consensus comes from. That's where good consensus, comes, from. But having said all of that, I can wager my life on it that Nigeria is going nowhere until the people sit down and say, how do we organize ourselves? Because political power, social power, all comes from the system that you practice and that you know. So I said to someone, Tinubu, I've been on Tinubu's case since 2007. Anybody that knows my profile, in fact, at the last elections, right? One of the guys who led the campaign for them said, "Oh, we would have engaged you, but we know you are a staunch enemy of Tinubu." We went to London there. We went down there to have beer together. Now, I said yes, but he was surprised that on this occasion, I said no. In the midst of all this anarchy, if Tinubu can get to be president, let him be president. Why did I say that? Because the old structure of trust, the old structure of equity, of whatever makes a country, has been broken.
Yeah.
I don't see any way forward. So what I wanted to say was that there was a lot of people who said to me, oh, what if we go our separate ways? What we are practicing in Nigeria is what we're going to practice in these subunits that we formed. I said, no. I'll give you the Yoruba thing. The most powerful, and it's the same way that it's going to be in your places as well. The most powerful Yoruba guy cannot come to my yard and kill me. He may kill me. Tinubu may kill me in Yoruba land. But trust me, my family, because we know ourselves, we know your ancestry, we know when you are rich, we know when you are not. You are not. You are
not
nobody.
invisible. Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? But when Tinubu lost the penultimate election to the one he won, he lost it. If you remember, that was when Uluoma was busy attacking people. He did not talk then. But who guaranteed his winning? It was Buhari sent in the soldiers from nowhere. So it's the same thing for policing. They bring a policeman.
By the way, what they're doing in the East, right? Because a lot of times now they appoint police chiefs for states that are not citizens, that are not from that state.
Yeah, so it's not going to work.
So in Anambra State, you have a police chief who's from Kaduna.
North. Yeah.
It's crazy. You're right.
So that is not going to work. So that's why I tell people that I want to come to the table let's say we tell ourselves at the national conference, let's practice something else for the next 20 years or next 30 years. And then let's put in the agreement that we'll come and have a referendum if we want to continue as Nigeria or we want to go our separate ways. And people, when we tell people that we need to go our separate ways, they think, oh, if you break things up now, it's going to be like crack tag. It's going to be all over the place. No, I said no. Once you say you're going, you have to have meetings, you have to do all your due diligence, and you have to have timing. It takes as much as 10 years.
Yeah.
And I give people the examples that people don't want to give. Take Belgium, for instance. If you remember, last year or 2 years ago, the old Belgian country was without the government for nearly 8 months.
8 months, yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because the Flemish, who are a bit French, the Germans, who make up part of the ethnic group, and the Dutch, who make the rest of the ethnic group, could not agree on certain things until they sat down. So, a quick one: the fact that we did not fight the white guy with guns or with violence, like Fanon said, does not mean that all of the fights that went underneath is not classified as war. Like the Abba riots, like all of these things.
Of course.
So let's now take Canada, for instance. The people living in Quebec, is it Quebec or Quebec? I don't.
Quebec.
Quebec. People living in Quebec are living under French cultural political system.
Yes.
And that's the way they want it.
Yes.
People living in British Columbia and Newfoundland are living under the influence of the British. And that's how they want it. And the two will never mix. They will never mix. And these are white people. So when people want to give you some kind of, examples, they don't give you the right examples.
Our cultural problem.
So for me, but what makes these people different? I go everywhere.
Jesse, we don't even have to go to what white people are doing. How did we exist before colonialism?
Yeah, I did some research on you.
Trade with one another and so on. Yes.
I did some research on you. When I saw, who am I speaking to? Or who am I going to be here with? I called Adesoji and I said, who is this lady? And she said, she writes books. She's very big on education of the African and all of that. And I said, yeah, our philosophy agrees with mine. In the sense that, imagine if Bayelsa was a constituent unit of Nigeria, and it says that I have the liberty to control the education that goes on at my local level. I'm sure they're not going to make English
their language.
Do you know the reason why they killed that guy who was fighting for the independence in Sarawiwa and the one before him,
Adakaboro, yeah.
Because they could get away with it.
Yeah.
If you had a structure that says you cannot attack a constituent unit, like in America, Texas says, I don't like what they're doing, so I'm going to partner with this guy and attack Utah. That's the end of the union. Do you get what I'm saying? So this is exactly where we're going from. All of us that are sitting here, we were told that Mungo Park discovered River Niger.
He did.
Yeah. Tough luck.
I sat down there and I was looking at the teacher. Are you stupid?
Mm.
Do you get what I mean? Even till tomorrow, okay. In my house now, I told my.
But you want to get A1 in your class. You gotta answer the question. Mungo Park is your.
So it is this sort of thing that if we do not give, because as a Yoruba guy, I'm not going to be interested in the culture of, say, the TV people beyond causerie, glance at whatever is happening in that region.
Yeah.
It is down to you as a custodian of that legacy that your ancestors have been holding for like the 5,000 years or 10,000 years for you to bring to the table in a union that you create. So that's why I say to people, what I find most disheartening is that those of us who are educated, supposedly, we cannot still come to the table like we're doing today and say, guys, what we've been doing is wrong. So whether you take what is happening in religion today, it's just like a fallout. If you tidy your house, there's no way a pastor is just going to. We're not America, where the pastor will sway the people to vote, so they give them tax exempt status. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
If you come to the UK, if you're a pastor, keep shut.
That's
You
what I said.
you can't even tell me. It's you understand? So this is why I'm saying that, because there's no structure within the whole place. It's acephalous, if I can use big word. It's neither here nor there. So it's like I'm big. It's just
Whatever should be taken.
So that's why every charlatan can come into the space. It's not regulated.
Yes.
So this is what we need to get back to, so that I want to discover things. I'm Yoruba. I travel around Europe, and I see myself going to look for their history that I've read. I came to America. I never felt comfortable because of the wealth of historical knowledge that I know about America and its relation to Black people. You understand? Stepping on the ground itself, my body was not at ease. Do you understand what I'm saying? How can we wake up? Look at us. We all woke up one day. Where did we go to? Get a visa, go to America. Get a visa, go to Sweden. Get a visa, go to Germany. Do we get visas and go to Ghana or go to Rwanda or go and know who these people are? It was recently that I was delving more into Yoruba culture so that I can explain it better to my son. And I found out that the Borno Empire, you see this kind of tribal marks they've got.
Yeah.
It's actually Yoruba. If you see all the Olokun heads,
yes, they have
been in existence for like 6,000 years.
Yes.
That's the same marks that you see.
Yes.
So if we know some of this history, why are we fighting? I went to Ghana. My mom, for instance, she spent
But you know we don't teach history in Nigerian schools anymore, right?
I know. I'm just saying. So if
I'm just bringing you back to reality, though. We don't teach history in our school.
That's why I mean that we need to go back to the proper structure. The proper structure. I was discussing with Adesoji the other day, and I said, Ekwabo in Yoruba is welcome. Akwaba. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And historically, we've had linkage of both the Edo Kingdom and the old Ife Kingdom as relationships with people in Ghana.
Yes. I read that recently and I was fascinated.
Now, economically, the question you asked before, why Ghana makes the best cocoa? Why aren't we investing in the best production process to take Ghana cocoa and
bring it to Nigeria?
And add value to it. No. Why are we not doing that?
Because we do not own our own minds. We see ourselves as inferior. It's the same reason Dangote will go and hire all of these people from outside of the nation. Because once someone has convinced you of your inferiority, you really don't have any expectations of your own, even though we leave our shores and we go and we add great value to other places. But if I come home to Nigeria now with my degrees and whatever I've accomplished, and a white American comes to apply for the same job that has a high school diploma and its certificate, we will see that person, we will esteem that person more than you would me.
Yeah.
Because of our mentality. So we and that's how the religion piece and the bleaching cream and the hair weave that Nigeria is now a capital of. And here we are a country with 29.9% inflation rate, where to make jollof rice for 5 people in Nigeria now will cost you about 10,000 naira. Meanwhile, the minimum wage for a month is 30,000 naira. So ask me, how are people supposed to live?
I give strangers money. And not to boast, but recently, 2 days ago, something really touched me. My younger brother called me and said, there's this dude in my area. I respected him a lot. We used to do politics together. And he said, the daughter's getting married. I'm like, okay. I knew already what was coming. And I said, Paddy, you'll give me small time. And he said, okay. Then yesterday he reminded me, I said, I've got this so amount somewhere. I can forward that. You know the response I got? The first time in my life I'm getting anybody reject money from me. I'm not joking. He touched me. He said, bros, I go tell you to keep that money because the way Nigeria be right, that thing not go reach them, do nothing. Go be like you cost demand. I said, if that's the case, then we have to wait a bit longer for me to gather. And I came off that WhatsApp and I was like, nobody has rejected money from me before, whether it was 5,000, 10,000, they never. For this person to say, no, don't even bother.
So speaking
It's
of,
the other way around for me. Before, when I send people money, they expect you to give them 100 grand and all of that. So nowadays, if you send 10,000 naira, people are so
grateful,
appreciative. So which is surprising to me because
well, because of the hunger. So
yeah,
now
I was shocked. I was shocked. I was like, huh?
the government is setting up what do they call it?
a
So they're
palliative.
trying to increase the minimum wage in the country, but they're also setting up something akin to the American Social Security system, where next, I think they announced it this week, that they're identifying 15 million Nigerians that they feel are the most impoverished. And they've set aside $12 million, the equivalent of $12 million.
I'm just going to tell you that is not going to work.
Well,
Hold that thought, guys. Hold that thought.
claim there's all this transparency.
We're talking about poverty. So this next quote will actually answer, will set the stage for what you're about to say. So Jude said, someone posed the question, oh, I need money, and as a result, you were looking to send said money, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have said beforehand that you need X amount of money to cook a dish of jollof rice for people. So if you listen to this quote, until I see someone eating out of the gutters before I believe there is poverty in Nigeria. This was Umaru Diko in 1982.
Well, we're eating out of gutters.
Well, that's the criminal who first stole our money and ran to England with it, you know. That's corruption.
That's a consequence of people.
We're eating out of gutters. In fact, they just reported that when you clean rice and the chef and all of that, that they used to use what they discard for chicken feed. Mm-hmm. Now people are buying that and adding whatever they can to it to eat that. That is how bad things are. Just today, four messages already. I'm like, you people don't give my phone number to anybody anymore. They'll call, sister, please, can you call me back? I don't have data. So you call them back, and then they'll say, hunger is killing me. Yeah. I have typhoid fever. I can't go to the hospital, because if you go to the hospital, you have to buy everything that is going to be used to treat you. Please, can you send anything you can send? It's really, really, really bad. And for our elders who don't have children, there is no system in place to provide assistance to them, because the village structure has fallen apart. The young people have flocked to the townships where they are living in abject poverty. And the elites are just finding ways to make themselves more comfortable. Now we not only have large walls, tall walls with barbed wire on it, now they have electrified the barbed wire so that even the birds know not to perch on them because they get electrocuted. But I said, how much further are your walls going to go for the elites?
Now, that is the fall of Rome. That's exactly what I'm saying. Look, I'm an innovation manager, and what you do is you look at thresholds for things. If you say, okay, intervene in this issue, you look at thresholds for what it took to get to where you are, and what it's going to take to get to the position you want to be, for instance. So, and then you look at the opportunities, you look at the motivations, and you say, okay, based on this and that and that and that and that, this might be the likely outcome. The reason why I kept insisting on structure is you look at what you said. You mentioned something. My mum, in the 3 weeks ago, she had a fall. Our bathroom has been adapted, so it's free of obstructions. Yeah. But she's 73 now, going 74. And she just tripped for whatever reason. And she damaged, the femur bones. Yeah, I think she completely severed off the other bone. And the the fees to do the surgery alone was around 800,000 naira. And they're going to buy this, buy that, do this, do that. That's another 500,000 naira. We ended up with a nurse, for 2 months to stay with her in the house. It just so happened that out of the 6 of us, only 2 people are left in Nigeria. One is in Abuja, and the other one lives in an area of, Lagos. So I understand what you're saying. And now imagine what you brought in, somebody who has not got kids, or somebody who's got kids and the kids are struggling. It is a bad situation to be in Nigeria. So I understand all of this. But look at it this way. We have the research is the retired Nigerians that are retiring from America, from the top economies. Every year, at least up to 500,000 people are retiring. These people don't want to spend, they are around 60, anywhere from 69 to 82. They don't want to spend time in the West beyond the summer months. But what keeps them from going to Nigeria to stay permanently? 1, security. 2, no, I say 1A, 1B is healthcare. You get it? Number 3 is infrastructure, like, okay, can I have access to electricity and basic internet? Right. Now, you might say, oh, this problem, that problem, but we can get solutions to all of that. Now, I know my mother-in-law, for instance, she's still paying her own rent, living in her own, place in London, which she could give up. She's paying all of that on her pension. She's retired. She's 83 now. Why does she need to keep a 1-bed flat in London where she's paying about 750 to the council and paying another £300 a month, probably in electricity, energy costs? Why? We have a place here. If she wants to stay permanently, she can stay with us. Do you get what I'm saying? So she can. What I'm getting to is that she can comfortably afford to pay £50 a month into a health insurance system back in Nigeria. And when she doesn't use it, she could not. That should be the idea, that if I don't use this, I can nominate someone in Nigeria
to use it
within that similar age to take advantage of what I'm paying into the system. But it's not going to work. You know why it's not going to work? It's not going to work for the same reason that you pay VAT in Lagos and it's shared across Nigeria to people who believe that drinking alcohol is haram.
It's haram, yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
VAT is supposed to be a local tax. At least 60% to 70% of VAT ought to reside in the areas from which it's generated.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? So if I've made the calculation that if we go Oduduwa state, for instance, Oduduwa country or whatever it is, that is one of the lowest hanging fruits that you've got. The 3 of us sitting down on this table, to our retirement, we are 15 years or less. And we will not want to be staying in the cold at that age.
Yeah.
We prefer to come in the summer to help our kids, do their school runs. And once it's winter, bang,
we'll take off.
back in Lagos, in Nigeria. Not only that, imagine the wealth of experience that all of us will contribute to our local environment. So my mother-in-law is a retired nurse. Like, if she goes back to Nigeria, do you think she's going to just sit back in our society and keep drinking kai kai? No. She will be applying that knowledge base that she's got.
Yes.
So there's quite a lot of things that we can infuse back into the economy. But those 3 things have got to be there. So that's why I'm saying that in Bayelsa, it's easier and quicker for them. So I met the guy who fixed my internet. I changed it recently. He's a Lithuanian. And he said, look, is it Lithuanian? One of these, new NATO countries. All of their government system is online. The whole country itself is 2.3 million people. Everybody is listed online. The government does not even need a physical space to sit down because they believe that Russia can attack them at any point in time and government needs to continue. Bayelsa can you know why you will not get a good census? Before the white people left, they put the mass of the population into the north where there's no population that much. And they based the allocation of resources on the amount of population that you've got. So you can conduct 1 million population censuses. It's all going to come back to the same political answer.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
if you've got a structure and Bayelsa says, all of Bayelsans, do you want to register on a database? I don't care about your NIN or BVN. Your NIN and BVN, I told you, is not going to work because it's not stopping the guys who are kidnapping people.
No.
They're still making calls. They're still transferring accounts. So it means that the whole system is corrupt. It's not going to save you. But if you run stuff by yourself, and Bayelsa people say, we have 3.5 million Bayelsas, 500,000 are in abroad, and the rest are in here. Okay, they can now say, this is the power of data. But you have to have data policy. You know, I've been writing about this for like ages.
I know.
You can now say, okay, Bayelsans can say, I, for instance, will do it. Do you know you don't need to contribute more than £1, $1, wherever you are, a month to your people, to your locality? Imagine that where I come from, there are about 50,000 and 1,000 of us, and we decide to contribute just £100 every year. I'm not saying month, every year. That should go to local causes. Do you know how many things they can do? Only for children and adults and old age pensioners. Yeah. Do you know how much impact we can have outside of government into that area? But there's no capacity to do that. If you send it now, it's just like the other day, I was telling someone, Adewumi, when Adewumi came and they were eulogizing him from America, Obama was saying Adewumi design. I said, that guy is a traitor. People were saying blah, blah, blah. So I left him. One of the things he did during the government was to bring in legislation that allowed GMO food to be legal in Nigeria. But leave that alone. He went to ADB, African Development Bank. And this is Adewumi Akinwumi. Is Akinwumi Adewumi? Akinwumi. He was celebrating the fact that ADB got $7.8 billion as foreign capital injection into Africa as loans in 1 year. So they were dancing him and the staff members, they were just doing this dance. I don't know if it's religious or not. And I said to someone, I'm really ashamed. At that point in time, we had a project in the office. And it was called Trade Bank for Africa, TDB or something like that. It's about 22 nations of east to west to South Africa with investors like Mongolia, nation investors like Mongolia, China, and all of that. And I wrote the whole, proposal, and I said to myself, so when I wrote the proposal, they were dealing with, their headquarters in Mauritius and Kenya, something like that. So they were dealing with about $3 billion a year. So there's this Chinese guy who is the research director. The guy looked at me and he said, really, is this all? I said, yeah, it's good money. He said, no. He said, it's not up to the amount, the disposable amount that the lowest local government in China.
Oh my God.
Spends.
And that amount was celebrated $7 billion for the whole of Africa.
So I said to people, now that 7.8 billion comes with conditionalities.
Yes.
And those conditionalities are going to remove at least $30 billion from the African continent in terms of paying back the loan, in terms of stopping you from producing the same thing that money is meant for.
Okay.
So, sorry, let me just land. Now, you, me, Aya, and about 18 to 15 million Nigerians outside of Nigeria. Do you know how much we send into Nigeria?
Oh, billions.
Without condition every year.
Billions.
We spend at least 20 billion USD into Nigeria. Nobody is saying, how do we channel this money like Pakistan is doing? Like, I don't need to go to a private...
Like the Israelis did.
You know what I'm saying?
With American Israelis who really funded Israel.
No, the Pakistani model actually wowed me because what it did was set up a bank here.
Yeah.
Set up a bank in Pakistani, and the government actually became the underwriter for certain trusted state partners in real estate, in companies, and all of that. So all you just need to do is you can say, I just want to invest £10 a month.
Yeah.
And you put your money in it. So as I'm speaking to you now, I bought a lot of shares before I left Nigeria. I appointed a company to say, register my shares and manage it because I know I'm going to be all over the place with managing it. They did whatever they did, stopped talking to me and all of that. Now, the SEC brought out this page where you can put your name and get. So I saw all of the pages that. So after you invested, I wrote after you invest, I sent them. This is the page. What can you do to manage it? I've not got a reply in 3 months. So this is what we're dealing with.
Structure.
Do you get what I'm saying? So there's so many points of waste in a system without structure. But if that structure is linked to you and is linked to you locally and linked to your local environment, brother, you will take advantage and then you will be responsible for what you've got.
Final question for you guys. It's a question on leadership. Because the entire crisis itself is a crisis of leadership, actually. And so if you can pull out your particular... One second. If you can pull out your take on this. So a great writer once wrote, a handful of us, the smart and the lucky, and hardly ever the best, have scrambled for the one shelter our former rulers have left and has taken it over and barricaded themselves in. That's Chinua Achebe from A Man of the People, talking about the question of leadership. So got 4 minutes. So I'll give you guys 1 minute each. Then I'll ask the final question because I need your take on this. So what would you say in terms of leadership? A minute each. What's your ideal leadership for whatever you envisage Nigeria to be or not to be? So over to you guys.
Hey, for me, an idea of leadership is self-accountability first and foremost. It starts with me. And it starts with being less ignorant. It starts with understanding you, the identity, your culture, where you come from, having a proper awareness of what is happening in your locality. Tinubu comes from a place, he's the president of Nigeria, but there's a place where he's a very local man. And people will say, Bola, you know what I mean? At the center, you might call him His Excellency. I think that's what Jesse was trying to say earlier. So I come from a place. It's me understand my identity within the whole entrapment and see how we can harness that. So it starts from me. If I don't know any of these things, all the knowledge we've poured out here today, if I don't know any of these things, how do I start to negotiate my place on the table? If I don't know what I bring to the table, like Jesse said earlier, how do I begin to hold that bargaining chip? How do I even sit there to have that conversation, raise my head? My head will be bad all the time because I don't know what I have. How many Bayelsans know what they have? How many really, indeed? How many? How many Deltans know? How many people from the Southwest know their wealth? How many people from Edo State know what we have? So again, going back to what I was saying, our mind has been captured. And I always said, I'm so sorry we're all Nigerians here. Through frustration so many times, as much as I like to promote black people, I've always said Nigerians are the most pathetic black people on earth, and they're the bane of black people worldwide. And until Nigeria and Nigerians know themselves, the black man will remain, the black man and the woman will remain on their knees. And it's out of frustration because of the potential that I see, because of what I believe that we can do. You just only need to see, what Jess has been saying about the structure. So for me, it starts with me, accountability.
Okay.
It starts with me.
Okay. Sister Ayo?
What kind of leadership would I like to see? I would actually love to see us go back to our roots. We once had, I'm not describing us as a utopia by any stretch of the imagination, because obviously we had enough issues that allowed us to be exploited in the way that we have been over the centuries. But we had systems where we did not have old people's homes. We did not have orphanages. We did not have prisons in the way that we understand them now. We did not have mental institutions in the way that where we actually even have those. Where education was not just for the few, If you lived in a community, everybody got the education they needed to be a functioning citizen, whether it's how to fish, how to dry food, how to grow food, how to take care of your environment. Like, education was something that was available to everybody, whether we want to call it our rites of passage or whatever. I would really like to, the leadership I'm looking for is a leadership that goes back to our roots. Some of you may have heard the term Sankofa, going back and retrieving the knowledge that we've lost. So, for instance, in Opobo, which is considered, in my opinion anyway, a food desert, environmental pollution has definitely changed the landscape environmentally. What animals and seafood we still have available, what we're able to do with the land. But if we go back to the little things like people having vegetable patches, people caring about one another. When I was a young woman, a young girl in Opobo, I did not see the hunger and the poverty that I see now. We took care of one another. When I was growing up in Opobo, we did not lock our doors. But we also did not have a police force per se. It was the community coming together and quote unquote policing itself. So I would like a leadership that goes back to really the basics, because what we're chasing after that we see the West having done, and I understand, yes, the time has moved on, technology and so on and so forth, but it's really not sustainable in the same way for us. Leaders who will go back to the basics, go back to us taking care of each other, going back to us having the relationship with our land that we used to, which meant that we understood God does not make it any more land. No one person owns land. Everybody takes care of what we have so that we can all live and thrive. That is the kind of leadership that I want to see. But what I'm seeing because of the educational system is where we're constantly trying to be something that we're not. And we're taking ideas and policies that work for other people because they have us to exploit. And we're trying to implement it in our nations, in our countries, in our community. And it's not working for us.
Thank you. Brother Jesse?
Yeah, I'll take on from when I finished from Opobo. I was fascinated by Jaja of Opobo because he was not royalty. He grew and became someone that was challenging the Western influence in the whole of Nigeria. So what I'm trying to say is that structures produce leaders and leaders produce structures. It's just like the case of chicken and the egg. But what we know is structure is like a mother. Without the woman, you cannot have procreation. It's just not, possible. So what I want to see is exactly what I want to see. And you cannot see that unless, of course, we go back to the basics where people have association and voice and individual power, respect and acceptance within their own cultures. Because what your culture produces is what you're going to give to the world, is what you're going to give to your neighbor. So if my neighbor is not making me to be at peace, we become another Umuleri and Aguleri, if you get what I'm saying. So, it has to be local. It has to start from local. If it doesn't start from there, then anyone can come. The European powers can come buy off the guy who's at the top and impose whatever they want to impose on you. And the guys who are at the base will never have a say. But to end it, we're having HS high-speed train built in the UK. So I was looking at the figures and the construction patterns. The same thing, if it was built in Spain, would cost about 193. It will cost about £7 billion, basically, if it was built in Spain. But because it was being built in the UK, it's costing upwards of about 60 to 70 billion now, and they have to cut, part of it. Why? Because in the UK, it's not just a question of construction. There have been conventions, there have been laws that gave power to the local individuals. So when they got to the Pennines and certain areas in mid,
no, you're not taking it through here.
The guy said, no, if you're going to take it through here, it's going to be underground because we have an area of outstanding national beauty and we don't want. that to be soiled. In fact, they dictated to them anything that is appearing above ground has to be done in a certain way that conforms with nature. In that area alone, he added over £1 billion to their construction, and they had to do it. So that's exactly what I mean in Nigeria, that nobody can just come to your ancestral land or to your place and impose whatever they're doing on you. And that's the only reason why you can be part of the decision-making process. And also, when you are done wherever you go, have the faith and the ability to return into that culture and contribute to that culture. A lot of us now, where we are going, once we finish from here, we want to go local in Nigeria, we'll be so shocked. I will not be able to contribite.
So, final question. I'm a book person. So, you're all Nigerians. So, can you recommend a book each?
Okay.
To Nigerians listening and watching. A book each.
Okay. For me,
Yes.
I always quickly recommend this book.
Which one?
This Present Darkness by Stephen Ellis.
Present Darkness by Stephen Ellis.
This Present Darkness. I think he calls it, I can't reach it right now, he calls it the most complete book on Nigerian gangsterism and corruption, something like that. But it's called This Present Darkness by Stephen Ellis. Again, it was written by a white man, but he lived all his life in Nigeria, died before the book came out. So, yeah.
Oh, man. It was the ancestors, wasn't it? Aya?
Wow. Well, there are so many books that I could recommend. At this point, the one that has absolutely captured my mind and my soul and my spirit in terms of thinking through our issues on a number of levels and thinking through what possible solutions would be is a book by Ayikwe called The Resolutionaries. Now, I could start with, just start by reading any history of your people. And I have a whole bunch of books on, like I have one by DK on the Niger Delta that gives us, good, because that's the area that I'm from. Even just studying King Jaja and understanding what he set up in Opobo and why the British had to get rid of him, and the role he played in the Ashanti War and helped the British, conquer the Ashantis. And then when they deported him and they had their little kangaroo court, it was actually in that area of Ghana where now there was no black entity that could actually fight on his behalf. So there's so many lessons that we can learn from history. I would say just start with the Niger Delta by DK, but definitely if you want to be forward looking in terms of solutions and understanding where we are right now, The Resolutionaries by Ayikwe.
And Jesse?
The OGs have said, fantastic book, but this book goes with me.
The coup de grace. Yeah, I know. Okay.
Cheik is, they said there are two people that Einstein was recognized as, 100 years ago. Michel Foucault has been recognized as one of the best brains in the last 50 years. But I think this guy is the best guy for the last 200 years. I'm not joking. So I chose this out of his works because if you want to understand what is going on in your own culture and how interconnected, we are, you need to go back to pre-colonial times to feel the topography, the political topography of how we are. And what Aya just said now, I need to, once we finish, I put it somewhere to quickly go and look at, because I saw about 2 documentaries on the Ashanti War, and there was no mention of the role that Jaja Opobo played in it. I'm telling you. So it was from the British military, producers
Jaja volunteered and sent soldiers on behalf of Her Majesty.
They couldn't defeat those guys until they brought in one guy who had been in Canada, fighting those Aboriginals, and they brought him and he chose this elite squad and they went there. So I did not know. Instead of them to say, and this from a well-respected British military historian, he should have said, "Oh, this guy actually helped us to win the war." In fact, the guy who won that war came back to the UK. He was knighted, and he was a celebrated, military general, and the place of people. Anyway, if you want to understand what's going on, how we organize, for instance, I was looking at the issue of slavery, because any idiot can come to you and say, "Oh, chattel slavery is nothing because we've had slavery everywhere and all of that." No, they're not. And this book will tell you why in Africa slaves are not just slaves. Slaves have a life. They contribute to the economic system, and they win by statutes. They win their own freedoms, and they become great. In fact, far greater in the place that have been enslaved than where they came from sometimes. And it traced what happened in the India subcontinent, where slavery, that was the first time that slavery was actually linked to the socio economic and political order of that place. So they had to appoint to you the kind of job you could do. So the black original inhabitants who are in India, they were segregated to that. They cannot do any other jobs. You cannot say, okay, like America, I'm going to aspire to do this job. No, your job was cast in stone. You don't go from it. You are like the vultures. You have to take the dead away. And so if you see all of those guys by the Ganges who are burning bodies and all of that, those are those guys. So, and it was a caste system that promoted, white. So while we're talking about, the European racism, the Indian one is actually far, far worse. Anyway, it traces it back to what we have now and why we need to respect ourselves and respect our spaces. You see, the reason why the white guy got an inroad into us was because we let our differences
get in the
define
way.
who we were. Like the Yoruba and the Edo, they claim Oromiyan as ancestors. So I don't see any reason why. In fact, the Edos built a far more technologically advanced civilization. Maybe not as wide and as big as Oyo or Ife, but they built the most technologically advanced. When the Portuguese came, they found underfloor heating system. So if you have underfloor heating system today in the UK or the US, some people did it than the Chinese ever did, and you had days, calendars, that was not Gregorian, that was so perfect. So for me, that's what I'm saying. So I want to respect that. I want to discover that as a Yoruba. I want to celebrate that. I want to take my son to go and celebrate that, not to put it in the same pot and mash it together like Agui and Rusi has said. No, we all have to shine in our little spaces and bring the light together at the center. That is what Nigeria needs to be. Anything other than that, go your separate ways, please.
Okay. You guys have given me books, and I would like to suggest this one. Wole Soyinka, The Open Soul of a Continent, a personal narrative of the Nigerian crisis. So,
Adesoji, but you need dictionary to read Wole Soyinka. He doesn't write for us.
This one is a bit gentle. This one is a bit gentle.
He writes to show off his English acumen.
His command.
This one is a bit gentle. It's a bit gentle. But I have to say thank you to you guys. It's been a true conversation. And in fact, I thought it was going to be economics, but I'm going to have to rewrite the title because, it was an insight into our psyche. It was.
If I may just interject really quickly.
Yeah.
The point that Jesse just made about slavery, King Jaja is a perfect example of that. Because he was captured and he was enslaved in Bonny, and then rose to the top. Now in Bonny, they did have something in the rules that said if you were formerly enslaved, you cannot become king of Bonny. but he was essentially as powerful as any other person in Bonnie, rising from. So there was the concept of chattel slavery, and everybody you had that comes from your lineage is now a slave did not exist. And then, of course, we know he went on after the Bonnie Civil War. He went on to found Opobo. So a perfect example.
I want to learn about this. Adesoji, can you bring Aya back just for exposé on this? Honestly, I'm Nigerian, and a lot of what she's telling me is genuine because it's been related to me from the local perspective.
Okay.
So what I know about Jaja for Opobo has been what the British told me. And this is part of the education thing that Aya has been talking about. We're being miseducated all the time.
At some point, we could actually do, what's it called? So we could interject, we could have two books.
No. You can bring her. I'm perfectly okay to listen. I just want to know.
No,
you know, for you and I, for us in London, I think I'll have to meet up with you guys for a pint or two, you know.
No worries.
Yeah, so, we could have a conversation about just the history of Nigeria. Just the history itself. Because I think it's one of the things that's often lost in conversation, the history of the place. Because the only time we tend to speak is when something crops up. We don't go back to say...
So reactionary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, of recent has been the issue of the Bini Bronzes going back. I'm pointing because I'm pointing to where the books are. The Bini Bronzes going back. But who understood the roles those bronzes played? How it's run around the entire Western Hemisphere. People have made money from it. And it goes back to what Jesse was saying earlier, which is the issue that if we don't have a structure in place, anyone or anything could literally just walk in and just trod over our value system. You know? We had Festac 77. One of the requests was that the British Museum allow the Queen Edia's marks be returned. And they said no.
Can you imagine?
The thief saying no.
Exactly. And the day I entered the museum to see that mask, I mean, I'm not a doe, but I understood the cultural reverence immediately. Because this thing was staring. You know when somebody focuses a stare on you and is literally following you in the room. My son was like, Dad, why is that? I'm like, that's how he was made. And I said, go and look at the date it was made. And it was made that people that look like you, that even the guys who stole it said it couldn't have been you. Because
as John Henry Clark would say, it was made at a time when white people had not even figured out how to wash themselves.
No, I mean, that's the irony. That's the irony. I mean, thank you very much. You guys have given me 2 hours.
You're welcome.
Of, in fact, this is going to have to be split into 2 now, part 1 and part 2. Because
you do your thing.
You might put people might just lose their minds thinking, wow, all of this. And thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for, thank you.
Jesse, what an honor.
Nice to meet you guys.
I can't wait to see you when I come to visit.
No worries.
Thank you. Thank you. And good night, everyone.